Republican California Congressman James Gallagher. Good to have you on the program, Congressman. So as John alluded to, Democrat socialists are promising things like Medicare for all, government-run stores, free city buses, and so many freebies. That really seems to be their platform. Do you see this as a growing political threat to Republicans, or do you think their influence is overstated?
Oh, no, I think it is growing in the Democratic Party, and it's a scary thing. I mean, let's call these guys what they really are, communists. You know, they want total control over your property, over your life. They want to take your wealth and redistribute it to their select few. That is their game plan. We've seen some of this back here in California, the beginnings of it, where guess what, guys? Here in California, we have the highest costs in the nation, bar none, controlled by radical Democrats. And we have the highest gas prices, highest electricity. These guys can't spell affordability. So don't believe it when they tell you they're going to lower your costs.
Yeah, Congressman, you said they're communists, but I also, watching Zoran Mondani here in New York, I think they're con artists because, you know, he runs on free grocery stores, and then we find out you're going to get a 30% discount on your groceries in 2029, but nothing today. And then they ran on free buses. As it turns out, there's no free buses. And then they raised the rates to ride the buses here in New York. So at some point, I'm hoping those moderate Democrats start to see the light on that side and come back towards the middle and even maybe towards the right. And there are even more establishment Democrats, like your fellow California Senator there, Adam Schiff, now saying their party has to accept socialism or else they'll lose in November. Take a look.
Party, and I think if we want to be in the majority, we're going to have to be a big tent party.
From your perspective, does the big tent for the Democrats supposed to include socialism in your state?
It's crazy, and this is what the American people need to know. Yeah, I mean, Schiff, buddying up there, to these socialists. Gavin Newsom out in Michigan, buddying up to Al Saeed. They're embracing this, and so I think the rank and file Democratic voter needs to understand this is where the politicians in your party, the powers that be, are heading. And it might sound really good, free buses, free grocery stores, but until you actually experience it and you see your costs soar and you see your property get taken and your wealth be taken from you, that's what these guys ultimately deliver, when they take power and control.
Indeed. And, I know this redistricting fight is going on across the country in the red states. They're trying to do it in the blue states. It's often something that affects political races. You're actually trying to address issues that go along with that redistricting through something you're calling the Representation Act. Talk to us about this act.
Yeah, so I'll use my area as an example. North of Sacramento in Northern California, we have many small towns that are connected by agriculture and water and rural lifestyle and values. And they've always been in the same congressional district. But under Gavin Newsom's redistricting plan, they ripped that district apart, put it into 3 different districts and connected it with urban areas. And so, what my bill is trying to do is say, hey, look, you cannot tear apart communities of interest. These areas that are connected by culture, industry, regions, you got to keep those together as best as possible. And so I'm trying to bring that into these redistricting wars that are going on here so that people have the opportunity to elect someone of their choice, and it's not dictated by partisan or politics.
Well, Congressman, we'll be watching your work on that. You are also a member of the House Committee on Foreign Affairs. Now, the USS George Washington is on its way to the Middle East to replace the USS Abraham Lincoln, which has been in the Pacific for more than 250 days during the war with Iran. What's your response to the vocal critics who say the U.S. is becoming overextended in this conflict?
Well, look, we need peace through strength. And I hear people, when they say, hey, we want to bring this conflict to an end, that there's been impact to fuel prices, to trade. But we can't go back to the days of Joe Biden and Barack Obama, fake red lines and bags of cash. I mean, we are dealing with an evil, diabolical regime who wants to get a nuclear weapon and they want to use it against us. They have killed our American soldiers. And so, Iran, at least the regime, is looking to America and saying, do you have the backbone And no, I don't want to get in a long drawn out conflict, but I do think we need to show Iran that we mean business. And that's what this president, and this Secretary of State and Secretary of War are trying to do, bring this to a resolution, but do so from a place of strength.
Yeah, it's difficult. It seems the way the negotiations are going for the last couple of months, it's difficult to think you can find a resolution that anyone's going to stick to, because we've had a whole bunch of fits and starts. Any way you can describe anything to us on who we're actually dealing with now? Is there someone there that has the power to do a deal with Trump and actually stick to it?
I was just saying, this isn't easy when you're dealing with the type of regime we are. I mean, these are very radical fundamentalists. They don't keep to their word. They've attacked us. They've been the largest funder of terrorism, bar none, in the world. They will use weapons against us. They were building up their ballistic missiles. And so, look, this president is the first one who's really come and dealt with them from a place of strength and saying, hey, you are going to do these things or else, right? And he's shown that he has the backbone to actually follow through. And so I do think that ultimately when you're dealing with folks like this, you do have to show that strength. And I think that will ultimately lead to a resolution that is good for America and brings stability and real peace. By the way, we also have all of the Arab states now on board with us. That's something we haven't had before, against Iran, and saying, no, we need to rein these guys in and bring this to a real stable situation finally, in the Middle East. So all those things I think are coming together. Yes, of course, it always takes too long. And I think people are feeling that, the pressure, the economic pressure, right? And we don't want to get into a long drawn out conflict, but it's also testing our resolve. Iran is looking to see what we will do, and I think that is something that's really important for us to be thinking about as we move forward.
Yeah, Congressman, are you concerned that what's happening in Iran might affect the Republicans going into the midterms?
Well, look, I mean, certainly people are feeling those economic pressures, and I understand that. But what I would tell the American people is, if you think the Democrats are going to bring down your costs, again, look nowhere else other than California, where they have total control and you have the highest gas prices. Our gas price out here is $5.50 a gallon. On the East Coast, it's $3.10 a gallon. That's a matter of policy. Democrats cannot spell affordability. Everything they touch, your prices go up. And so, you can't trust these guys to say that they're actually going to bring down costs. They've done nothing but raise them when they're in power.
All right, California Congressman James Gallagher, those are very high gas prices. Thank you so much. We'll be watching your work as well. Appreciate it.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.